My team and those that followed me, we were actually specifically created with a single purpose in mind, and that was to lock out of a submarine on the bottom of the Sea of Okhotsk and tap into Soviet underwater communications cables. That was the reason we were there. That was the reason for the entire program that we were in. The whole kit and caboodle was a huge operational cover-up to make sure that the Soviets didn't find out what it was we were actually doing. Well, it was a huge success. And I think virtually everybody here knows that. If you haven't, it was a huge success. But powers that be got to thinking, you know, we've got these really very intelligent, highly trained, extremely capable guys who can function on the bottom up to 1,000 feet. What are we going to do with them? And they put their heads together and came up with operation after operation after operation. Some of them similar to Ivy Bell's in the sense that it was looking for and tapping into other underwater communications cables on the East Coast and in the Barents Sea. Lots of stuff was going on there. It didn't take the Soviets that long once Pelton, a rogue chief petty officer, told them what we were doing. It didn't take them that long to find out the other places we were operating. And the end result was that we would lay down the SOSUS cables and SOSUS arrays, and the Soviets would come along with great big bottom hooks and pull them up. And it became a cat and mouse game. How do we get these things in the water in such a way that the Soviets can't find out about it? We had gotten so good at what we were doing, laying cables and disrupting the Soviets' cables. And I'm talking now about my guys and the other teams like mine who are down on the bottom actually doing this stuff.
How many teams were there, Robert?
At any given time, there were 3 or 4 of them. Probably all told, there were 10.
Each one operating off of one of those big catamarans?
No, operated. The catamaran was part of the cover.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, that was just there to make sure that the DSRVs looked like they meant something. The only reason we had DSRVs was so that the halibut and a couple of the other subs could, the Parchi in particular, could take a fake DSRV on its stern. It was actually a saturation diving chamber that looked like a DSRV, and then go out on what appeared to be DSRV ops and then disappear in the ocean and go to the sites and do this stuff. And
all right, let me interrupt you for a second here, because I want to set the table. Could you just sort of lay out the con? Like what you've told us what we were actually, what did we say we were doing?
What we said we were doing was creating a method for rescuing submariners from submarines that had gone down. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are former submariners or current submariners, but I do know that all of you realize that our submarines don't operate below 2,000 feet. The DSRVs were capable of going down to about, say 5, maybe 6,000 feet. But our submarines couldn't survive down there. And anybody who sat down and thought his way through that might have said, well, what are we doing this? What's this all about? Well, the whole thing came about when, and I actually don't know the guy's name. He was out in Chesapeake Bay with his kid fishing, and he saw a sign on the shore that said, cable crossing, don't anchor here. He got to thinking, you know something? I'll bet you in the Sea of Okhotsk, where they are certainly going to have underwater cables going across the ocean there, I'll bet you they got signs in Cyrillic that say the same thing. And I bet
because there's a major submarine base on the Kamchatka Peninsula.
That's right. But not just that, there are military bases all around the place there. Mm-hmm. And he's thinking, we could, if we had the ability, we could tap into these and really get some good intel. And so we created something called the Man in the Sea program. The purpose of the Man in the Sea program was to develop capable saturation divers. We actually killed the guy in the process, but the point is that we learned how to do it. We learned the technology. We learned how to survive on the ocean bottom. We learned how to do work. But then we had to have something to justify this. And so We created the DSRVs. We created 2 large, complicated catamaran motherships. We created a flyaway program where you could take a DSRV and put it inside of a great big Air Force transport and transport it anywhere in the world, and then put it piggyback on a submarine and take it out and rescue submariners from a downed submarine. Right.